Well, let's stay with all things tech because a high-tech conference kicked off in Johannesburg today. After being launched in New York in 2009, social media weeks are now held annually across the world in about 25 cities. Johannesburg is the second African city after Lagos to start hosting the events. Managing Director of Technology Strategy at Accenture, Naik, presented a keynote address, and he joins us now. Great to have you with us, Lee. Now this is crucial what you're talking about, because you're talking about service delivery, which is big here. We've seen very disruptive protests, and you're saying that technology can actually help service delivery. So explain that to me first.
Well, Francis, technology is intrinsically part of everything we do as citizens. Just as last week we spoke about there being over 11 million Facebook users in South Africa and over 6 million Twitter users.
Sure.
So you and I as citizens and the people around us, our mums, our uncles, are using this technology. If this is pervasively being used by citizens, how can governments and businesses latch onto it as a vehicle for service delivery? So that's the conversation that started this week at Social Media Week. And it's been amazing as we look at what the city of Johannesburg is doing right now, rolling out Wi-Fi, rolling out the Rea Vaya bus system. How do we become a smarter and digital city? More importantly, how do we become a city that delivers services to our citizens that create better outcomes for us as citizens, right?
A lot of government departments and businesses are on Twitter, are on Facebook. Are they really appreciating that this community that can tell you where problems are? I mean, it's risky, but these people can also tell you where the problems are and where you're doing well and give you that feedback.
Well, in South Africa, the journey has only just started. So as you rightly said, governments have started to start their foray into social media, into Twitter, into Facebook. But the second they start to analyze these data points, start to understand people complaining about service deliveries and responding in a real time, that's when service delivery starts to change and starts to make a difference.
Can you assess how well Joburg is doing? I mean, it's quite interesting that they are hosting this week.
Well, the Executive Mayor of Johannesburg, Executive Mayor Parks Tau, has a clearly articulated strategy for the city of Johannesburg. It's called the Growth and Development Strategy of 2040. And one of the key pillars in the strategy is a smart city. So they have a very cohesive framework and a measurement study around that. And what they've started to do is build out these capabilities to enable social media, enable technology to create value for citizens. So clearly this journey has started.
And you were looking at Wi-Fi in Joburg, and what are digitized streets?
Well, digitized streets talks to the notion of every single street that we walk on, we drive on, having the insight from the sensors around it. So if we tap onto the power of the technology we have at our disposal, if we're stuck in traffic and we have insight into how the traffic patterns are moving, we have to organize ourselves better, know when to reroute when we have to. As a government, we know where the data points are. If the water is down, electricity is down, we have forewarning using proactive sensors as opposed to reactively responding to that.
Is that happening? Or are you talking about something that's a theoretical future situation?
Well, the scenario of water management and waste management electricity is something that leading cities around the world, for example, Singapore, the United States, are starting to do. In the case of the city of Johannesburg, it's something that they started to latch onto. So it is early days, but this notion of proactive sensors has been around for quite a long time, and it's only a matter of time, given the pervasiveness of the technology, that we start to see value coming from it.
Well, what about the basic infrastructure even? Because some people elsewhere in Africa said they're so much more connected than we are, and you need that back end, those Wi-Fi hotspots. How are we doing just in terms of the basic back end?
I think as citizens we can clearly see the benefit. We've got a lot more competition amongst the major telcos. We've seen the cities like the city of Johannesburg lay their own fiber in the ground. And what that means is that the enabling backbone or the enabling infrastructure that's required is there. The key question is, how fast can a city move to build out services on top of this infrastructure? Because once these services are in play, like in the case of Kenya or Singapore or Songdo in South Korea, right? It's these services that have been transformed, changing the way government has worked for years into the new age, into the age that the natives of the digital era can actually latch onto.
beyond service delivery, what's exciting you? Because it sounds like a lot of people are coming together, a lot of interesting people presenting ideas. Is that what this social media week is about? Just swapping ideas, maybe sparking ideas?
Well, one of the key things of this week, as I see it, is to take the very, very pervasive technologies, social media, and try to make something out of it. So for governments, how do you use that to transform service delivery? For large organizations, how do you become relevant? Some of the conversations we'll keep having this week, for example, tomorrow, when we host a discussion about big business disruption, we're going to talk about how banks, for example, will have to change to be relevant. The likes of you and I don't go into a bank, but rather use a mobile app to do our transactions. How will that change the bank or change the retail store? One of the really cool things we've actually demonstrated this week is something called video analytics. With all the crime around Johannesburg and around the country, how can we latch on to the video analytics investment? For example, we have a lot of CCTV around the country. Could we tap into this technology investment in real time to predict crimes before they happen, using face recognition, car recognition, and certain patterns? This has been proven very, very clearly in leading markets like the UK, the United States, and now in other more established economies in Colombia and Singapore. So how do we latch on it as South Africans? And that's the conversation for this week.
Well, I think after our crime stats, a lot of people would want to latch onto that, anything to reduce crime. And very interesting. Thank you for your insight into Social Media Week currently taking place in Johannesburg. That was Naik from Accenture.